Hi friends, it's Diane, the Creative Inkster. Today is Monday, July 11th, 2022, and I'm on vacation, so I'm doing this pre-recorded video for you. Stampin' Up! Has let us know that July is watercolor month, and so I wanted to do a little watercolor technique with you, something that you can make with all the tools you have at home. Nothing fancy is required for this one. It's plain basic white cardstock. And we're going to use a block to make this beautiful image here. So here's the card that I made. Here is a version I made first. And as you can see, the colors aren't quite the same. And I learned a little bit along the way. So I'm going to share my tricks with you. So first off, I have a few ink colors that I'm working with. I'm going to use tones of green. So this is Soft Sea Foam, Pear Pizzazz, and Old Olive. I'm going to do my dark stamping of the leaves over top in an even darker shade of green, Evening Evergreen. Let's grab our paper. So I need a standard card base for this one. And it is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And I'm going to just, which is the middle, and I'm just going to burnish it and have it ready here. I'm also going to add a piece of white on the inside and 2 layers, which I'll do after. And here's our 2 layers we're going to work with. So the piece of white that I'm working on is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8 onto a 4 by 5 1/4. It's a very thin border, but I like what that does on this card to make it pop. So just that little bit of a thin border with Pear Pizzazz. So just working on our piece of white. I'm going to open our ink pads one at a time just to be safe. We're going to grab a block. So it really doesn't matter what type of block you use, but you have blocks for stamping anyway. So grab a clear block and make sure it's kind of clean. This one here has some residue from adhesive left behind, so probably not the best choice. And I want this to fit across like that. So I'm going to take this H block. And I'm going to start with my lightest color. And I'm just going to take my block and press it gently into my ink pad. I don't want to press it too hard. I don't want too much color to come up. Then I'm going to take the next color, which is Pear Pizzazz. And I'm going to try to get it just right next to the lighter color, but you'll see I've got quite a bit over to the right. So I have a couple of options with that. I can stamp over it, or I can grab a baby wipe or tissue and remove a little bit of that excess. And that's what I'm going to opt to do here, is just remove a little bit of the excess. If you have our ink spots, that is perfect for putting small amounts on here. I'm going to take my Old Olive and I'm going to put it on the end. And that's a lot. And I know I've got a space in between, but that's okay because I'm going to spritz this and it's going to spread around a little bit. It might be a little darker. Every single time you do this, it's going to be different. And that's the beauty of this type of technique. Just looking for a piece of scrap paper I can put down. Here we go, so that I don't muck up my sheet here. So I'm going to grab my spritzer. You could use any spritzer sort of that you have. So I've got this wet ink on here. I'm going to add some water drops, just 2 spritzes, and I'm going to tilt this here and there a little bit so that I get a little bit of the color running together. You don't want it so wet that it runs off the block, but you want it to at least run a little bit between it. So using my grid paper, and this is my messy piece, I'm going to flip it over and find a spot on the front that's somewhat centered. I'm going to press down. Now, the harder you press, the more ink is going to be distributed. There we go. Look at that. Very different from my first one. Let me just clean up my ink block here before I end up getting ink all over me. So just a quick baby wipe, that works. And I'm going to let this dry, but look at how that's really different from the other ones that I was working with. So this was the one I ended up making the card with. And this one was the original one. Looks a little bit more like the original one, actually. Now I'm going to take the Evening Evergreen, which is my darkest color of green that I'm working with. And you can use different colors, but I suggest you get some nice lighter ones in the mix. And I'm just allowing this all to dry. And if it doesn't dry fast enough for you, get your heat tool out and give it a little bit of help. I'm going to grab this one. I like this stamp. This is Forever Fern. And I like this one because it has some lovely detail on it. All right, so are you dry? Just about. I'm going to ink this up. And that's how the stamp looks. So it's variegated, if you will. And we're going to just put it like this. And again, I'm not too concerned with it hitting all the spots. If it doesn't hit spots the way that I want, I can try going over it. And it's okay because it's just adding that little bit of definition. Here we go. Flip it around. I might even put a little piece up in here. There we go. So I'm adding the color right over top of my watercolor piece. And then because this stamp set has a beautiful stamp to do it with, there's this little splotchy one. I'm going to take the splotchy one. Keep all kinds of extra bits in here because sometimes this is some retired die cuts, but I can use them with this stamp set once in a while. So now I'm going to just take my little splotchy piece and my Pear Pizzazz, because that kind of matches my mat. And I'm just going to add these willy-nilly here and there. And there's no rhyme or reason to this, folks. And I don't want to make it too symmetrical, but I don't want it everywhere either. So just a few little splots. If you don't want to do that, that's great. If you want to take your marker and flick it, that's another technique. You can absolutely do that. Stick those over there. Now I need a greeting. And I think I'm going to do another Love and Laughter Forever After. I think that makes a really nice sentiment for an anniversary card. So let's clean this guy up here. And use our block again. And I'm going to go again with the darker or the darkest color, which was Evening Evergreen. Put my greeting on there. Still drying a bit. That's okay. I do a little test run. I still do that after stamping all these years, just so I have the better chance of it actually landing straight and where I want it to be. There we go. Love and Laughter Forever After. And I'm ready to put my card together. So let's bring in the layer that we're going to work with here. So this is kind of a simple watercolor kind of look or watercolor technique that you can try. Let's get the glue going. Switch to our Stamp and Seal, which is at the ready. Yeah, you can use this technique really quickly to make a watercolor looking card. You don't need fancy watercolor paper or tools. The spritzer helps. It wasn't necessary, but it helps. And then I'm going to stick it onto my card base over here, like so. Raise it up if you like. I'm just going to glue it right down. And then add any kind of embellishments that suit you with your watercolor technique, or leave it as simple as that. So thanks for watching. I will be back live next week when the vacation is over. Have a good week. Bye for now.